Hi everyone, welcome back. It's great to be back. Sure is. Okay, and I am your host, Anthony Gamer. Welcome to my channel. And I'm Larry the Lion. And in today's episode, by request, we're going to discuss games based on the anime Sailor Moon. Sailor Moon, originally translated as Pretty Soldier Sailor Moon and later as Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon, is a Japanese shoujo manga series written and illustrated by Nako Takuchi. It was originally serialized in Nakayoshi from 1991 to 1997. The manga series itself was adapted into several different animated series, as well as short films, a TV special, and even a live-action series. Since its release, Pretty Soldier Sailor Moon has received critical acclaim for its art, characterization, and humor. The manga has sold over 35 million copies worldwide, making it one of the best-selling shoujo manga series, and the franchise has also generated $13 billion in worldwide merchandise sales. Now, the main story is that a middle school-aged girl named Usagi Tsukino befriends Luna, a talking black cat who gives her a magical brooch, enabling her to transform into Sailor Moon, a soldier destined to save the Earth. They put together a team of other sailor soldiers to help them to fight the evil and to find the silver crystal. You have Sailor Mercury, Sailor Mars, Sailor Jupiter, and Sailor Venus. Plus also you have a talking feline named Artemis and their friend Mamora Chiba, a high school student who assists them on occasions as Tuxedo Mask. Don't let their cutie appearance fool you, though. These girls really know how to fight and can mix it up with the best of them. Exactly. Now, I've always said that I believe that game companies don't cater enough to girls and women in their games, aside from making the Barbie games. And if you want to get girls interested in beat-em-up type games, what better way to do it than with Sailor Moon? And our first game for today is an arcade game from 1995. This is Pretty Soldier Sailor Moon. This was actually released worldwide on March 22nd, 1995. One thing to keep in mind that several of these games we're going to discuss today were not released outside of Japan, or if they were released in very small, limited quantities. As a matter of fact, I don't remember seeing this game in the arcade when I was a kid, although honestly I probably wasn't looking for it. Anyway, it's your typical 90s beat-em-up game. You play any one of the girls. You can have up to 2 players, and in some versions 4, and you basically just go around and beat up the bad guys. Some fans put it best when they said this game was actually described as a beat-em-up inspired by Capcom's Final Fight. Exactly, which was probably one of the biggest beat-up games from that time period. So, as I said, the best way to get girls interested in beat-em-up type games is to use a character that a lot of girls relate to and love, and Sailor Moon was a perfect example for that. Next up, from 1984, we have Bushijo Senshi Sailor Moon, which, again, you're going to find is kind of a recurring title with a lot of these games. This game was only released in Japan. It was released July 8th, 1994. This is another beat-em-up game. Now, some people kind of assume that this is actually a port of the arcade game, but that is not true, as this game was actually released a year earlier. It has several of the same elements of that game. Honestly, I would have to say one of the only complaints I have about this game is the fact that none of the characters, Sailor Moon or any of the other Sailor characters, have a very long reach. You really have to get right up to your opponents in order to beat them up and knock them out, which again is kind of rough because some of these guys in this game don't mess around, so you will kind of find yourself using those continues quite often. But other than that, it is a really cool beat 'em up game. Next up, from 1995, we have Bushijo Senshi Sailor Moon S. This also was released only in Japan on January 27, 1995 for the Sega Game Gear. Right. Like the previous game, it is a beat 'em up, but it also has a lot of elements of puzzles and, of course, platforming. There were a lot of really cool games, I thought, for the Sega Game Gear, and whether you're a fan of Sailor Moon or not, this is definitely one of those games to check out. Next, we're going to discuss some Sailor Moon games for the Sega Pico. Now, what is the Sega Pico? Well, it was a edutainment game console for children, usually between the ages of 3 and 8. It was almost like an interactive storybook that you would play as a video game on the television. Very much ahead of its time. Unfortunately, it was not a big hit in the United States, but actually was quite a big hit in Japan. What you're looking at here is game footage from the Sega Pico game Bishujo Senshi Sailor Moon S that was released in Japan in 1994. Although there is an emulator for the Pico itself called Pico Drive, this is a very hard console to really emulate. Best way I can describe it, it has like a computer kind of screen in which you would put these cartridges that also have built-in books. You use a light pen of sorts to point at certain places on the pad that will in turn help you interact with the television. Pretty cool and ahead of its time for sure, especially for being in the mid-90s. As I said, this is a game that really doesn't emulate well. Although there are several cool games for the Pico, about the best way to experience it fully is to get one yourself. And what you're looking at here is the Super Nintendo, or excuse me, the Super Famicom version of the Sega Genesis beat 'em up Sailor Moon game. Exactly. This game was released in 1995, about a year after the Genesis version, and right around the time that the arcade game was released. It's very similar to the Genesis version in that you pretty much are just walking around beating up people. And kind of like the Genesis version, you don't really have a long reach. As you can see, I'm kind of having a little bit of trouble hitting those guys. I'm hitting them, but then they're still kind of far away, so you got to get really in close combat in order to take out your enemies. And like the other games, you have the choice of using all of the Sailor characters, and you also have a really cool magical effect that you can use once per level. There will be several games released for the Super Famicom. Many of them are either role-playing games or puzzle-type games. Now this one really stands out to me, and this is an actual fighting 2D game that was developed by Monolith and published by Angel. This was released March 29th, 1996 in Japan. Now, if you're a big fan of the Street Fighter games, you're going to love this one. But I'll be honest with you, it's not easy. You better take the training missions that they give you and do some experimenting, but this game is tough. Which is interesting because, I mean, just about anyone can get the hang of Street Fighter 2 or some of the other fighting games from that time period, but this one is pretty tough. So check it out, but don't be disappointed if it takes you a couple tries in order to actually do some damage to your opponent. In conclusion, we're going to discuss one of the two Sailor Moon games that were made for the Game Boy. Now, I say two. One of them was pretty much strictly a puzzle game as far as I could see, as the game was totally in Japanese and I don't speak a word of it, nor can I read it. Now this game actually has two parts where it has a puzzle aspect and it has this beat 'em up platformer game. Generally speaking, you don't really need to know how to speak or read Japanese in order to figure this game out. It's pretty much just go around and mash buttons and beat up guys. Even the puzzle element is pretty easy, as it's mostly sliding tile puzzles, so there's a little bit of something for everyone in this game. One thing I was kind of surprised about is that they never made any more Sailor Moon games for the later Game Boys. Exactly, they never made any for the Game Boy Advance or the Game Boy Color, which I found kind of strange, as they made several games for the Super NES. As the series continues with a new movie on the horizon in 2021, games are still being made with these young ladies to this day. For just about every game system since the mid-90s, you will find at least one Sailor Moon game therein. We really hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And click that bell icon down there so you'll be notified when we upload new episodes. In next week's episode, we will be discussing arcade beat-em-up games from the 90s. Well, until next time, I'm Anthony Gamer. I'm Larry the Lion. And we will see you all in the next video. Until then, have yourselves a great day. Goodbye.